afternoon from New York. I am Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS As It Is, where ideas get a voice. Before I start the show, I want to take a moment to acknowledge my mother, Marjorie Collins, who turned 92 today, 32 I wish. And happy birthday, Mom. So I want to take this opportunity to say to you, thank you very much. I could not have been here today without you. Very good. All right, wonderful. Kojo, you want to talk about intimacy between art and politics. Before we get there, who is Kojo? How would you describe yourself?
Well, I have worn many hats over the last few years. I prefer to describe myself as a creative professional. Um, I write. I'm a photographer. I'm a filmmaker, writer. Done a little bit of directing. But rather than to say I'm one or the other, I'm a creative professional. I'm an artist. I have the need, the same way that birds gotta fly and fish gotta swim. I have a need to create, and I create through different medium.
What drives this creativity? What I mean, why do you get up and do what you do?
I mean, there are different reasons at any point in time, but really for me, one thing that drives me, or that has driven me more than anything else in the last few years, is a need to comment on the times. I feel that as an artist, as someone who has been given a gift, because I really don't think that this so much comes from me. I have a responsibility to hone that gift and to put it into practice and so forth. Um, but this gift that I have been given, I have a responsibility to use it for the benefit of others. And the way I see myself doing that is commenting on the times. Um, whether that is overtly political or not depends on the situation, depends on where I find myself, where I see the course that my country is taking. I comment on the times. That's what I seek to do.
What bothers you as a young man, as a creative person? What bothers you a lot about Guyana today?
There's so many things. I think that one of the things that bothers me the most is the passivity, the apathy. Um, and just as a side note, I really think I need to get some oxygen outside of Guyana myself, because I think when you're here for too long, things become normal.
Hmm.
Um, Perhaps that is what plagues people. They don't know much of anything else, or just for the sake of survival, for the sake of their own sanity, they just decide to just put blinders on and keep eyes front. Yeah, but it's the apathy that gets me. It's the way that people have dead in their souls. Whether it's sometimes maybe it's just what we see on the surface, or sometimes it's deeper than that. I've seen little children coming out of Buxton, for instance. I can't remember the exact year, but it would have been sometime after Buxton had their troubles with the prison breakout and so forth. Um, I was one of the facilitators for a quote unquote summer camp, and I got about a dozen or so children out of Buxton, and I've never seen a older set of little children ever in my life.
Older
You know,
set of little children.
children ever in my life.
What do you
You
mean?
know,
What do you mean by older set of children?
I have two children,
All right.
two small children, three and one, and anyone who has children who has been around small children know that children just have a life to them, an energy to them. It's unbound. It's just they're just energy. There's little balls of energy moving around.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that with those children, and I can't blame. Perhaps I'm going off a bit on a tangent. Um, those children perhaps would have gone through their own situations, would have seen things they ought not to have seen, gone through experiences they ought not have gone through. Um, but generally speaking, though, it's I blame all of us for that, because there's a to the extent that we are apathetic to the the needs of the other person. And the other person can be someone from outside of your village. The other person can be someone who has different hair texture than you, who carries a different party card if you carry a party card. But there's just a general, there's an apathy towards one another. There's an apathy towards the situation in Guyana. There's a certain extent to which people just move about. I see it, and I've commented on it in some of my writing. A lot of people move about in autopilot for the sake of their own survival. Some people call it cowardice, but for some people, it's just for the sake of survival. They move about in autopilot.
When you think of Guyana, what comes to mind?
Potential, potential. I've been lucky. I've been so lucky, so blessed to be able to travel through this country. Blessed to be able to travel through this country, whether it's on political campaigns or as a volunteer with one organization or the next, or any means. I've just been lucky to be able to travel, um, whether it's Essequibo quarantine, whether it's Rupanuni. Rupanuni is just amazing. What I see is a country that has so much potential, so much economic potential, so much potential to project its culture outwards. Um, I've found myself stranded far, far from home, and it was, to use a cliche, the kindness of strangers that really brought me through. You know, um, that particular situation happened about 15 years ago, where I found myself stranded in Perica as a student, and managed to get boarding a lodge and a boat out the next morning from people who had never met me before. I don't know if that would happen today, but that's the Guyana that I try. That's the Guyana I know that I try to hold on to. When I think of Guyana, I don't think about Georgetown. I think about those experiences across the country where we've been able to see the natural beauty of the country, to see the beauty of the people, and to always think of where we should be and where we are now. And it's just out there, and it's going to take a lot of work for us to realize that potential, but it's just outside of reach for me.
And
Perhaps that's really optimistic. I don't
how do
know.
you think the artists, the creatives, in Guyana can help to bring about some sort of the kind of social change you're expecting or anticipating?
Well, I believe Ruel Johnson might have spoken with you about this before in terms of the role that the arts, the role that or cultural education plays in, we use it social cohesion. I don't know how many people understand what social cohesion is. It's a kind of a abstract, nebulous kind of term for a lot of people, but it's about understanding each other. I think that art can be used um, to bridge differences, large and small, um, for people to know, well, you know what, this thing that guy is talking about there up on stage. I have had this happen to me. People have come up to me after I would have performed spoken word, and they say, you know what, I what you said right there, I wanted to say it, but I didn't know how to say it. You know, um, uh, there's that. There's also just understanding each other's. different cultures that we have, you know. So the culture in Rupununi is different from the culture on the coastline. Hindu culture being different from Christian culture. And we understand, we recognize the differences, but as a other, as something that's maybe dangerous, something that we're wary of. So I think culture can be used to recognize those differences, but in a respectful way, in a way that allows us to be able to travel through this country, whether it's on political campaigns or as a volunteer with one organization or the next, or you know, any means. I've just been lucky to be able to travel, um, whether it's Essequibo quarantine, whether it's Rupununi. Rupununi is just amazing. What I see is a country that has so much potential, so much economic potential, so much potential to project its culture outwards. Um, you know, I've found myself stranded far from home, and it was, to use a cliche, the kindness of strangers that really brought me through. You know, um, that particular situation happened about 15 years ago, where I found myself stranded in Perica as a student. I managed to get boarding a lodge and a boat out the next morning from people who had never met me before. I don't know if that would happen today, but that's the Guyana that I tried. That's the Guyana I know that I try to hold on to. When I think of Guyana, I don't think about Georgetown. I think about those experiences across the country where we've been able to see the natural beauty of the country, to see the beauty of the people, and to always think of where we should be and where we are now. And it's just out there, you know. I mean, it's going to take a lot of work for us to realize that potential, but it's just outside of reach for me.
And
Be optimistic.
how do you think the artists, the creatives, in Guyana can help to bring about some sort of the kind of social change you're expecting or anticipating?
Well, I believe Ruel Johnson might have spoken with you about this before in terms of the role that the arts, the role or cultural education plays in, we say social cohesion. I don't know how many people understand what social cohesion is. You know, it's a kind of abstract, nebulous kind of term for a lot of people, but it's about understanding each other. I think that art can be used to bridge differences, large and small, for people to know, well, you know what, this thing that guy is talking about there up on stage. You know, I have had this happen to me. People have come up to me after I would have performed spoken word and say, you know what, I what you said right there, I wanted to say it, but I didn't know how to say it. You know, there's also just understanding each other's different cultures that we have, you know. So the culture in Rupununi is different from the culture on the coastline. Hindu culture being different from Christian culture. And we understand, we recognize the differences, but as a other, as something that's maybe dangerous, something that we're wary of. So I think culture can be used to recognize those differences, but in a respectful way, in a way that allows bridges to be crossed.
I have to ask you this side of it. What are about three things you absolutely just love about Guyana?
The three things that I absolutely love about Guyana. I love the landscape. We have a diverse landscape. We've got, you know, thick jungle. We have rolling savannas, mountains. The last trip I took to South Rupununi, I was rolling through, and I'm seeing these outcroppings of these black rocks. These I don't know if it's volcanic rock or whatever. These black rocks just popping up out of the savannah. And being a filmmaker, I'm imagining, this would be a great scene for a western or something like that. Modern day western or something like that. So there's a landscape.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's the savannas, the mountains, the rivers can be beautiful. I don't get sick of it. I don't get sick of it really.
Well,
The food and just um, and not just the usual thing that we talk about. I mean, we have a much richer menu than we realize. Once you get off the coastline, and let me ask you a question. Do you know what a sugar apple is?
I know what sugar apple is, yes.
You know what sugar apple, but but how many guys? But you're one of the few Guyanese I know that knows what a sugar apple is. Or when was the last time you actually saw a sugar apple um, on the Guyanese coastline?
A lot, well, over 30 years, I believe.
Over 30 years ago. Well, there are a lot of Guyanese my age that have never seen sugar apple. All right. So we have a rich palette beyond what's readily available on the coast. And I still think that there is a bit of that Guyanese hospitality. So I've seen it suffer. I've seen it really suffer because of the times that we've gone through. But Guyanese still have the potential to be just amazingly warm with each other. Embrace you.
So change is critical then, and we're having elections on May 11th. What does that mean to you personally? What do you hope will come out of that?
I by no means think that May 12th is the destination. May 12th is not the destination.
Right.
I am almost 100% certain that there will be a government. How smoothly that goes, all the shenanigans that might take place on May 11th, that's a different matter altogether. But tide of change is real. May 12th is not the destination. May 12th is the beginning of a long journey, of a journey forward for the country economically. We have to be able to look in ourselves. I wrote a letter in the papers maybe a few weeks ago talking about the need for us to not ignore our history, right? Because of course every election cycle, history lessons start popping up all about the place, and some of those history lessons are questionable, and so forth. And someone asked, well, in relation to this moving forward campaign that's going around social media, does that mean that we forget about our past? I say no. It means that we look at all of our past, all of it, right? Recognize what we have, not just how we have been wrong, but how we have wronged each other. Use it as a teachable lesson, as a teaching moment, as a teachable moment, and plot how we move forward.
How do you tell that particular story or present that particular message in some of your artwork, be it your film, be it your spoken word, your prose? How do you do that, or do you do it?
Well, that's a new message. That's a new bit of messaging that's popped up recently in my thought process. Look, whenever I write, I don't write as often as I used to. But when I do write, I try to be as honest as possible. And if I know that I can't be honest, then I shouldn't be writing. I have to hold this thing back, And I'm honest about these opinions. I'm honest about what I see, what I observed. I'm honest about how I see. I think you might have listened to a poem that I did called Juxtaposition.
Yeah.
I talked about the legacy of of Chetty Jagan and Papa Chetty, and not to and I hope you don't get a a lot of response from this, but not to denigrate the man's legacy, but just to look at the totality of the legacy. And the totality of the legacy is that this was a man that went through tremendous sacrifice, and he was a fighter and all these sort of things and all that. But the situation that we find ourselves in presently in Guyana, this government that we have, is also part of his legacy. So that's what I mean by being totally honest, not just being convenient.
If you were in a room or an auditorium with a group of young men, young Guyanese men who are disillusioned with living in Guyana for whatever reason, one or the other, um, and they're ambivalent about voting, they just can't see themselves going to the poll. With your sense of social and civic responsibility, what would you tell them to encourage them to participate at least?
Well, I would tell them first and foremost that I understand the disappointment. We've all been through the disappointment. Um, and secondly, I would say if if they have the feeling that at the end of the day none of this matters, or the thing I hear a lot is I don't follow politics. Um, the thing I tell people right now is that as much as you feel that you don't follow politics, you don't want to follow politics, politics follows you. Politics follows you all the time. Politics is following you when you're complaining about the price of gas, taxi driver, or the maintenance on your vehicle. Politics is following you when you try to get your children to school in the morning and have to go through that ordeal. Politics is following you, when you're lighting candles around your house again because you have blackout. Politics is following you all the time. So there's no getting away from it. There's no escaping it.
Sorry.
And the third thing I would say to people is to live deliberately. If you're just going to just be around and just take up space and say, it doesn't matter, or whatever the case may be, that's a nonsense argument. If you're not gonna live deliberately, then please give me back my oxygen and give me, to stop taking up space.
Just give it back to you. You won't negotiate
Just
for
give it back to me. Just go someplace. You're wasting time. We're wasting everyone's time and resources.
Kojo, I want to ask you this before we close. What is your latest film project? But before that, though, let me ask you this. You're a photographer, a professional. You are a film producer. What are some things you see behind the lens that many of us might not see or notice or pay attention to?
No, I really think that's for other people to comment. I mean, I just went about doing what I knew how to do. But one of my friends, he always comments on my photos, and he says, the face is Kojo. And it's very funny that you asked that question, because I'm actually doing a class right now in cinematic studies. It's the option in this CAPE course, and we were looking at a filmmaker style, and it's Stanislavski, and he's more interested in the visual, in the emotion of the person, and the idea that that the individual matters. And I think when go about my photography, I think I like to focus on people and what it is that they are going through, what they are feeling, and so forth. And I love to take candidates for that reason, because I want to get you as you are, not not conscious that I'm pointing a lens at you.
What's next for you as an artist?
Well, there are a few things. I recently finished a screenplay for a short film, tentatively named Adero.
Adele?
And Adero. It's,
Adaro.
it's it, yeah, it's a bastardization of a African of an African name that I'm ashamed I can't remember what the
Stop.
name meant, but it has something to do with searching and so forth and so on. But it's the story of a man who should be content. He has all of the material things. By no way am I talking about myself. I'm a struggling artist like everybody, all the rest. But there's a man who has all the material things, has a beautiful wife, has success, as we call it, but he's empty inside. And he starts having these strange experiences, these strange mystical experiences. And without giving away too much of it, what he ends up having to do is to take a journey, a physical journey, to find himself and to find out who he is and what is within him, because he has something very powerful within him that he's lived with all his life, but he's never really knew how to tap into consciously. And I guess that's how a lot of people are. It's the story has a lot of elements of Amerindian mysticism. Partly from my own experiences in Region 9, going back to I think about 2001. That was my first experience. But yeah, I think it's a story that everyone, or at least I hope a lot of people can relate to. That regardless of the fact that this person is middle class or upper class, that he has some creature comforts. There's something missing. There's a potential that he's not tapping into, and it's right there.
Well, I hope, Coach, your time has run out on us. I hope that you'll come back and share that with us later.
Half hour already.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you so very much for standing in for Mark Benchcop at such a late notice. But this is what community is about. And I'm looking forward to seeing that film when it's finished.
Me too.
Thank you, brother. You have to leave the meeting, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.